Hello, and welcome to the second workday of the week, and also this week's installment of Tinker Tuesday. If you're a contributor to the channel on Patreon, you were part of the decision of what this video was going to be about. If not, you're just here for the ride. Consider this portion of the video my shameless plug for support on Patreon or through the Teespring link below. Now that awkwardness is over with, on with this stuff. Obviously, by the title of this video, we're messing with the Rawnstercross again, and we're gonna just do a quick kind of mock-up assembly of what I have completed already. But first, I want to do some very dramatic and cinematic shots of the parts that are going onto it, mostly because I think it'll be hilarious to try and do some really nice, high-quality shots of the turd products that I own. So, to achieve these shots, the lights need to go out. Ah, yes. That looks not bad. I'll be honest, I don't have a whole lot of faith that worked out half decent, but I won't know until later, and it was worth a try. Okay, to summarize, we've got one somewhat polished, maybe not as good as I would have liked, Tricross frame. That was probably the best spot for it. Two, a newly painted, albeit some imperfection, Jameis fork that has always lived on this bike since I've owned it. Also, might I add, paint properly cured before actually touching it. One set of bizarre headset bearings, 41 millimeter, not 41.8 I think it is, 45 degree. These are the ones that will drop right into a bare Tricross frame. I'm gonna do everything I can to keep these protected, probably just bathe them in really high-grade industrial grease, the really sticky stuff that doesn't really let anything penetrate it. I don't really want to have to search for these ever again. It's kind of a headache. You can get them from Cane Creek, but I really don't know how much longer you'll be able to get them for. Last but not least, the wheels. We talked about the wheels last week. They are the Easton hubs from my old tubulars that are laced to Velocity quills. I've since ripped the decals off because the brake track on these is so small that I had them set up wrong and the stickers were getting torn to bits anyway. Also, these are the handlebars and stem that were on the bike. I don't know that I'm going to use the brake shifters or this stem or these handlebars quite yet, but for the mock-up that we're doing today, these will definitely be great placeholders. Now, in the last upload, talking about the Tricross, which happened to be last week, Z-Ben, you commented, nice painting the fork, but we all know you won't clean those wheels, which kind of makes me feel a little bit obligated to do just that. I don't know if it was supposed to be reverse psychology, saying that I won't do it, or that you were just going to be right, that I wasn't going to do it. Needless to say, it made me think about it, and now I have to go clean them. I'm not offended. Every time I bring up a comment, people think I'm offended. I'm not offended. Ready? Now I just want to make one thing clear. For those of you who I know are probably doing the antsy pants dance, this bike is not going to be completed today. We're just kind of putting some stuff together to get an idea what the silhouette's going to look like. I understand that's demoralizing, but that's just the way it is. It's really hot in here right now. The insulation and the heater works really good. First things first is figuring out, actually, some better lighting. There we go. First of all, it's all about figuring out what I'm going to do with these new headset bearings that are just a little bit taller than what were in there. Now, what I normally use for grease on almost all my products is Amsoil synthetic polymetric grease, heavy duty for off-road. It's 5% moly, which means it has a good time. Essentially what all that jibber jabber means is it's for heavy equipment and it doesn't like to come off without a whole lot of scrubbing and a whole lot of degreaser. Now you're not going to want to use a product like this on something that should have low friction, but for headset bearing, especially for one that I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to replace again, I feel pretty good about using it because it's not going to dry up, it's not going to get worn down by weather, and really nothing's really going to get rid of it. So it's what I use. This is the literal product we used to use on our rental bikes. We'd take them apart, see that nothing was wrong, and put them back together. So with the bearings being like the littlest bit taller, there's a couple things that I'm sort of anticipating here. One being the gap between the top of the fork here and the bottom of the head tube being that little bit bigger. Not the end of the world, especially with having grease in here, but basically what that means is, well, that the gap's a little bit bigger and that I don't have to worry about if, like, someday, somehow, someone decides to come in here and like over tighten the headset bearing preload, that the fork or the head tube never sort of contact each other. That's sort of like a nice insurance policy. Honestly, not something I've ever been worried about. Nobody works on my bikes other than me. Two is I'm thinking there'll also be a bigger gap between the top and the dust cap. It was fairly close to begin with, so maybe not the end of the world. I always did like the way that looked. So I think overall this is probably the moment and the look we were all truly after. Black fork, polished frame. Name a more iconic duo. Also, this Cane Creek dust cap almost does the trick for not having anything else over it. Will I leave it like that? No. I kind of feel like a grown-up doing the responsible thing and making sure that the right stuff is up there. But I guess that's what happens when you're trying to preserve the life of something. Is that what it's like to have kids? Wheels wise, well, you know what the wheels are, but wheels are kind of a big deciding factor in what you can run for drivetrains. I think we all know this. If you've got an older style freehub body, the wider 11-speed cassette is, well, it's pretty well doomed. It's not going to get on there. With slightly higher end wheels from like a particular era where 11-speed was just starting to be flirted with, you can't help but want to have a look. And maybe if you've got one, test fit an 11-speed cassette on what you've already got. And maybe, just maybe, the 11-speed cassette that you just so happen to have in the shop right now does indeed fit on the wheel that you didn't think it would fit on. Yeah. So I think that alone kind of solidifies exactly what I want to do drivetrain wise with this bike. 1x11 SRAM, mostly so that I can get into the newer style brake levers. They just feel a little bit nicer than the older ones. Yeah, all right. The more and more I look at it, the more I do start to like the way the tires look. Now, there are a few final things that we do need to figure out, probably together, in what we're going to do with the rest of this build. I could throw the old Avid Shorty 6s on it. I don't really want to do that. I think it would be more fun to put a nicer brake on this bike, but it's not really the end of the world if I don't. We don't really want to break the bank with this, though we do have the entire winter to work on it. I am now looking for a Force One or a Rival One group set with mechanical brake levers. If you've got one and you want to send it along or sell it or whatever for like, you know, a reasonable price, let me know. That's what I need to keep the ball rolling on this. Until then, we're kind of dead in the water. Is it wrong of me to want to use Paul mini V-brakes on this? And like them be polished silver? Also, cranks. I'm gonna need some cranks. I'm not really sure what I want to use. I don't really want to use anything from like the big 2 or 3. I'd like to use something kind of obscure. Maybe something from like Rotor. That'd be kind of cool. Something that you just wouldn't expect to see on like a cheap Tricross frame with like, you know, kind of the nice parts that we already have on this thing. Not outlandish, but like, you know, reasonably nice parts. You know, the thing that we do on this channel. That's about as much as I can do with this right now. Just get like a silhouette of what this thing's gonna kind of look like once it's fully built. Bikes always look like a little bit awkward, like a puppy who's not fully grown into their legs yet when they're at this stage of a build. And I always kind of start to like second guess where they're at. Do you ever feel that way? Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I really, really like the way the Spindat logo looks in all these videos. Okay, that does it for Tinker Tuesday, if that wasn't obvious. If you want to support the channel, do it in all the spots. I know you guys don't love to hear that.